friends, Romans, countrymen, lent me your ears, right? That's today's pun because we're in the Lent Bay today. And look at us, we're broadcasting from the friendly confines of San Juan Center in the computer lab. Really excited to be here with you today. I appreciate you spending the time clicking on the video and exploring the not so straightforward aspect of the Lent Bay. Now, for all intents and purposes, and to the naked eye, the Lent Bay should be pretty straightforward. Really, only one airway kind of makes up its architecture. It's Lima 455, north and southbound. Furnace just over there along for the ride because it transitions over to Maycor and yet again joining Lima 455. So there are some times where the Lent Bay is really easy and kind of mindless, and then there are times where it can get confusing when it comes to aircraft's direction after they depart, length the fix, where are they going after? And more often than not, the difficulty comes from you, the D side, D4, coordinating outbounds. So I'm really looking forward to getting that down. We're going to have a couple of approvals coming from New York Center's airspace, but most of the time we're looking at traffic search in this very unique bay. And as you see, there's a bit of a body of water there that kind of looks like a bay. So there's a whole bunch of puns in this title slide. Can't wait. Let's go to a bulleted list and take care of some of the housekeeping items before we jump into a sector. I will see you there. So it's a list, but without the awesome headset bullets. So you'll have to just make it do. So there you go, taking a look at the video map that you would find at a Micro eArts workstation and concentrating in the area east of the Thank Vorsi area. As you see, this is the GLADA 3, right, goes to Molly, and you have your Maycor transition, which goes to Maycor. So everything east of Molly that is transitioning to New York Center's airspace, going over the fixes Ferna for your San Juan guys, because they're on the GLADA, or if they're going on Lima 455, they're going over Kinch. This makes up the Lent Bay, and Lent being the fix right here that makes up the fix posting. Now, as you see, there are multiple airways, and obviously the GLADA 3 departure that somehow transition their way to Kinch or Ferna. So they make their way through this bay. Lima 455 is most notable. It's the namesake. It goes all the way to the Kennedy VOR. Lima 776, formerly Yankee 331, goes to Maycor as well. And also a whole bunch of airways that do not necessarily transition, but they are ever important to the structure. Mike 423, Mike 597 goes to Janma, and sometimes they can transition northbound on Lima 455. So there are a lot of built-in thoroughfares to get to this bay, and it's an often used bay because it is the first kind of airway, Lima 455 that is non-radar, that lies outside of Miami Center's airspace. So the ocean area, sector 63, covers Lima 451, 2, 3, and 4. Well, the next one over is Lima 455, and that is in the craft area, the Great X area of New York Oceanic non-radar sectors. So it is one of those vital pathways to get to the New York terminal area. So we see a considerable amount of traffic here. So as alluded to, the approval process is pretty much straightforward here. We know that it's really easy to say yes and approve. Most of the time, the aircraft are arriving southbound over Kinch, sometimes on Lima 776 going southeastbound, but more often than not, it is very, very difficult, and even it's hard to fathom and kind of generate an idea of how New York would try to slip something past you, because Ferna and Kinch are not laterally separated. They're treated as one. First off, because for our sake, they converge at Maycor, and for New York's sake, they slightly diverge, but not enough to have non-radar separation. So there's no lateral separation there. So it's really hard for New York to hand you something, but it could sometimes be very difficult for you to wrap your head around what is actually going on, because there are so many airways and transitions combining to one common point and riding a straight line, which is Lima 455 northbound. So what we're going to be looking at today is you doing the coordinating. So departures and overflights that are leaving San Juan Center airspace going to New York Center airspace. So This is an opportunity to build some radar associate fundamentals, help the R side out say, hey, is a climb good, right? Kind of like we did in the Thank Bay when we explored there. Just being there, knowing what traffic is entering the airspace, what the traffic situation looks like leaving our airspace, and having that open dialogue with the R side and letting them what's safe and what isn't, what's approved and what isn't. So without further ado, with this image in mind, knowing that this is the general area that we are looking at today, and it's nice because it's kind of segregated, and the idea that this is our little window today is the Lent Bay. So often you would work the Lent and Thank Bay together, but today we are just taking a look at this, focusing in on this area in particular. I'm excited, so to the sector we go. Ready, set, jets go. I will see you there. Excellent. So if this is your first time, welcome to the Lent Bay, a fantastic traffic bay at that. What a wonderful name, Lent with two N's, just kind of sticks, So we took a briefing, and there is plenty of work to be done. There's a lot of players on the board and nothing's approved or coordinated, so that gives us an opportunity to really get some good reps in. So as we sit down oh so casually, we post a departure. Well, what do you know? A departure just happened to emit itself, and there we go. Put it in time sequence, it's marked up properly, and you should know by now, after we've had videos, multiple videos at that at the Thank Bay and the Yaya Native Bay, that the first thing we are going to do is take a look at the traffic situation, taking it strip by strip, looking to see if the aircraft is good for its climb all the way up to the requested altitude, prepare the strip for coordination, and then do the coordinating. So let's do that together. So test 001 is on Lima 455 on the GLADA 3 departure, and 36. So we are looking for anybody who might get in the way. So we have test 567, a low overflight at 31. But as you see there, and if you can remember the image of the GLADA 3 departure, the GLADA 3 departure is very, very efficient in the radar sense because it does not immediately start to mirror the airways that converge at Kinch and Furna. It kind of branches out, right, over Mali and Vorsi, but our branch goes off of Mali and goes to Furna. So it kind of stays out to the east there, east of Lima 455, and still laterally separated from Lima 776 if that were to give us any problem too. So something to be aware of, but this is more of a radar thing. And we know that this aircraft is probably going to get fixed right for direction. We have a Finch arrival as 2022, and this aircraft will be gone at 2021. So it's reasonable to expect that this aircraft will be level at 36 leaving our airspace. As we discussed in the Thank Bay video, we really don't coordinate climbing too often, and if we do, it's because the aircraft is really, really heavy. But in this case, we can have a reasonable expectation this aircraft will be level leaving our airspace. 35, 2023, and 2021. This aircraft will be gone according to the strip time, and hopefully by the pilot estimate will concur with that this aircraft will be gone before this aircraft even is on scene. We have an aircraft that's climbing out of Punta Cana, looks like, 2032, and they don't look to be a factor at all. This will be more of a radar thing. Heavy aircraft, you can just look at the length and a beam length time to know this aircraft is still a good distance away from our particular aircraft. Aircraft that is also transitioning on Lima 455 northbound as well at 34. Kinsha 2031, they will leave, or they will be gone. Our aircraft, our departure will be gone a whole 10 minutes before this aircraft even shows up. So probably on the radar and definitely non-radar, it looks completely clean. Not to mention that most of the time here, all these aircraft are requesting a different altitude, if not at a higher altitude, leaving the airspace. So far, so good. We're doing just fine. Another aircraft here is a Lima 776, a very long airway in our airspace, probably one of the longest that goes from one point of our airspace to the other. They're at 34, Furna at 33. Yet again, we have some in-trail working out here, and we have a proposal at 2029er. They're at 33. Yet again, the aircraft will be gone by the time this aircraft shows up. No factor at all. See, the beautiful thing about the GLAD 3 departure and having two fixes, Furna and Kinch, is the idea that if aircraft are level, right, a level at their respective altitude and at an altitude that is correct direction, correct height for flight, as they say, then everything will be fine. Everybody's level entering and leaving the airspace, then there's no factor there, right? Because pinch and fin are not laterally separated, so you can't be co-altitude there, but as long as you're level and there's some built-in altitude difference, then you're fine, and we can see that exemplified here. So with that being said, let's get on the horn, craft San Juan center estimate, and we would start, right? They'd say craft, and we'd be like test 001 at Ferna, time and level 2021, level 360 Mach 0.78, and they would say, just as we talked our way through this, pending no traffic that they have in their airspace, and more often than not, the only time they would really deny that is if they have traffic on Mike 596, which is just outside of our airspace, entering the fix in sector 63 over waters. So sometimes you will even see that traffic because our radar will pick that up, or Grand Turk will pick it up, and we'll actually see the traffic for these aircraft, but pending they have no traffic, 36 is approved. But guess what? They have a few for us, and we should have been expecting this by now. So that's okay. We'll hold it right here. We're going to go to the next slide. We're going to flatten this strip, feel good about ourselves doing this first coordination, getting out of the way, and we have some approvals there on the board that are for us. So exciting stuff. We'll talk about it in the next slide. I will see you there. One of the advantages to us doing these videos and putting a pause in the theoretical clock we have going on in this conversation with New York, right? We kind of just put a little ... We are in suspense. We're still hot on the telephone line with New York Center about their pending approvals entering our airspace. But we are able to have these sidebar conversations that we are known to do. This is where the learning happens. So with that in mind, we have a little pause, and we're going to take a look at the proposals, these aircraft that are entering our airspace from New York Center's airspace. Yet again, you can see the night and day difference, the advantages of having a common system where the strips are printed out well far in advance. This is diametrically opposed to what we have going on in sectors 2 and 8, where you have to make that decision kind of on the fly when you take it out of the suspense bay and start writing down numbers and doing a traffic search. Here we could have taken care of this traffic search long before. And maybe even in the briefing we got a traffic scenario of pending things entering our airspace, but that's okay. We're able to brief ourselves now and kind of get a good picture of what's going to happen when aircraft enter our airspace. We take care of a traffic search with our departure, which we did very methodically per the book, and we coordinated, prepared the strip for coordination, and so on and so forth. But let's take a look at what New York has cooking with us. And one of the things that might kind of get out at you with our first proposal inbound is test 9988, and it's a Kinch San Juan lander, very simple here at 31. Now, look at this. We have test 567, also at 31. But guess what? A simple underline of 31 will make that blatantly obvious as why we should not worry too much about this. This aircraft entered San Juan Center's airspace from Curacao Center's airspace. As you know, as per the orientation of airways that converge on SCAPA, that those aircraft are pointed eastbound for the same reason that we give Curacao Center even altitudes because they're westbound. So the way the orientation works up, so it results in aircraft being odd going northbound on Lima 455. There's a couple saving graces. One, there are a whole controller, they're a whole sector away, and those people are very competent, and more often than not, they will completely fix and put this aircraft at an even altitude. And we also know by the time this aircraft leaves San Juan Center's airspace, they will have to be at an even altitude as per our letter of agreement with New York Center. So with this, we can expect an amendment, possibly an update to the strip via the R side when this aircraft is climbed to 32, and that should be happening relatively soon. And if the R8 or R2 controller who's working it combined is really nice and charitable, they will solicit the estimate for Kinch, the Mach number, and whatever altitude selection in even levels. So nothing to worry about here. That will get fixed relatively soon. So 31 is looking good for an approval there. The next inbound is 35, and we're looking at inbounds or outbounds here. No real head-on traffic situation. 2023, this aircraft leaves at 2021. Maybe we're looking at potential climbing situations here, but the way we just talked about, the way the GLADA is laterally separated as a radar procedure from the standard inbound route, Lima 455 to LENT, Mike 523 pling, Route 7 Sam 1. They keep each other very much so laterally separated in terms of radar. Now, non-radar, that's a different story, but there's lots of space for these aircraft to coexist, cooperate, do their mission, right? Inbound, outbound, and they're able to coexist and be separated as per procedures with no effort from you or the radar controller. So 35 looking just fine on that standard routing. We have an aircraft that is slow climbing, so we don't know what that's like. We're not talking this particular aircraft yet. We do know it's radar, maybe somewhere down in the helm of Sector 6. We have this aircraft, another outbound. And our last proposal, so 35 is looking just fine. Sorry, we're able to approve this. If it's not abundantly clear, we have this distant aircraft that's somewhere out south of our position, maybe in Sector 2's airspace. But double T, not triple T 445, that's a different aircraft, right? Similar sounding call signs, double T 4455, requesting 33. Yet again, no factor with anybody. We have New York giving us odd altitudes, and we give New York Center even altitude. So these aircraft by default are automatically good for approval. Now, it's not always the case, but that's why we take it aircraft by aircraft. So they have a few for us. So let's hit the play button. We are no longer paused. Go ahead. First, test 9988 Kinch, test 9988, Kinch time and level, Kinch 2022, flight level 310. Level 310 is approved. Test 123 Kinch, Kinch time and level 2023, flight level 350. Flight level 350 is approved. And test, little test, let's call it that, or double test 4455, Kinch time and level 2029, flight level 330. Level 330 is approved. So you see how we're able to do that? So here's what you would think about doing. One, you pay attention to the briefing when the controller is being relieved. When the controller being relieved is getting out and you are plugged in, you should be looking and seeing what is probably pending, what you can expect New York Center to give you, and what you are pre-planning to give New York Center based upon the current traffic situation as it stands as a static entity. So things are just fine here. You sit down, you get situated, and you take a look at what you're going to be able to say yes to right off the bat, right? That's the advantage of sitting down in either 4 and 6 is you have the picture well in advance, and you are way ahead just by the nature of the sector than you would be in sectors 2 and 8. So look at this. You're able to take care of this pre-planning and be able to say, hey, I'm going to say yes right off the bat, pending no changes. Now, sometimes things do change, and you'll get departures from Punta Cana, departures from San Juan, St. Thomas, maybe a Juliana in there that will throw you for a loop. But more often than not, you stay focused and you always pay attention that every time you post an aircraft and a departure from one of our adjacent facilities, approach control facilities, just know it might really change what you had planned. And that's okay. That's why you adapt to it. But still, the idea that you have that aircraft, and in terms of Sector 4, given its large surface area, you're about 20 minutes away from that aircraft entering the sector, and sometimes less, but you definitely have more than 20 minutes prior to that aircraft reaching the boundary or reaching the time that you would have to coordinate that aircraft with New York Center. So you have time to figure that out, to wrap your head around that. Nothing is instantaneous. So just continue to be vigilant, scan your traffic, and just know that every time a good strip prints out of the printer and you mark it up and post it, that you have to see if it affects anything that you might have planned or that you are ready to coordinate. Okay, so keep that in mind. Let's keep moving on, and let's see how some of these estimates for some of these aircraft that are flat right now, how we're going to prepare those aircraft for coordination here very shortly. So I'll see you at the next slide for that. Wow, look at this change in landscape. A whole bunch of offset strips, and they are updated with the latest information. It seems that the radar controller in our sector, the R4 controller, maybe the R2 and R8 controller, was able to get a hold of these aircraft and solicit the estimates that we needed. So we are provided with the most up-to-date and accurate information as per the strips and as per the pilot. So that is wonderful. this presents us with an opportunity to, one, not get too hasty and hit up the line and say, oh, hey, everything's ready. It's all worked out. It's all good. Well, not necessarily. So let's take a look here and let's take it aircraft by aircraft, just like we did. Now, one of the advantages we have is the idea that these aircraft aren't climbing. Well, maybe one, maybe the Punta Cana departure might still be climbing. But these aircraft are in straight and level flight. So we are not looking so much to see if they're climb is okay or if something will get in the way of some kind of maneuver. But what we are looking for is, hey, can I climb these, or are these aircraft good at their requested altitude? Are they good at their current altitude? Do I need to provide an alternate altitude? But also, too, raining on our parade, departure comes out. So yet again, we're going to find ourselves looking for safe altitudes to climb to, and also seeing if that requested altitude is available for that particular aircraft. So with test 567, we know that we're going to pre-plan 300. And why is that? Because let's think about it as from 30 to 32. Is 32 available? Well, it might have been, but I think that quickly deteriorated with that departure because they're Kensha 2024. If they get 30, obviously that solves the conflict with the inbound that was tying us up, right? Devoting some of our attention to that. But this aircraft, Test 002, is requesting 34, 2029er. Now, if we go up a little further in the spirit of first come, first served, now yet again, no factor with this arrival, right? This arrival, one, is not only at a higher altitude than this aircraft is even requesting, so their climb is completely all right. So no need to worry about that. But we have this additional overflight, this test 9090, happy at 34 and has been at 34 for quite some time. So with the idea of first come, first serve, this aircraft is probably going to take the day. So that also means that this aircraft, even though it's at 31, we are going to pre-plan 30. Now, yet again, this is one of those instances where you might be asking, well, what about first come, first serve with that? Well, yeah, this aircraft probably should get 32 and it might be easier, but we are just going to pre-plan this that way. Now know that it can go either which way, whatever you want to do, and do as I say, not as I do, but this was the solution that just kind of seemed obvious to me at the time and would take care of things as well. Now, in retrospect, you might think to yourself too, and a technique that you might want to apply is the idea that this aircraft is currently at 0 feet of altitude climbing, whereas this aircraft has been in the flight levels for a considerable amount of time. And maybe this aircraft gets 32 and they stop this aircraft at 30. It's a lot easier to do. And I would agree with you. Yet again, from a radar perspective, it's kind of innocuous. Yet again, because of the nature of the Glide 3 departure, is kind of offset to the east of Lima 455 transitioning traffic, right? That's the beauty of having that branch out, and the bulk of the climb, depending on how well this aircraft climbs, the bulk of the climb is in the wonderful dead space of Sector 4, with not many airways kind of cutting through there, at least not anymore, maybe a couple, but nothing that the radar can't solve. So just go with it, knowing that you can have applied my technique either which way, but this is the one that just happens to be public. So we have 36, obviously coordinated, 30, which will take this aircraft down, 32, so this aircraft can stay at 34, which is fine. Everybody is so far separated, and we have every altitude occupied from 30, 32, 34, 36. And we would pre-plan 38 for this particular aircraft. Now this example here, as you see, they departed Punta Cana, go eastbound, but then they're going to turn back to the west. And 38 makes perfect sense. They want 37 along for altitude because initial part of their route segment was easterly direction. So 38 makes sense. Now sometimes you'll have an aircraft that is going to transition from Punta Cana's airspace over Batir, or possibly go direct LENT and then perhaps go on a random route off of Furna or Kinch, Furna to some lat long, or Furna to some of the far east fixes that exist out there, 5Z and 4 or and the like, or maybe even up to Bermuda that way as they make their way over the pond. But that's not the case. This aircraft will be heading westbound, but if it was going eastbound, then we would have peace of mind having that aircraft be correct direction for flight at 37. So, but that's okay. Let's pre-plan 38, just respecting the letter of agreement. And look, we have this aircraft at 2033, but we are not talking to that particular aircraft yet, and we can offer changes to that aircraft, which is certainly possible. And maybe we'll get some updated information about how these things have changed. So with that being said, what we have in front of us with the latest and greatest information we have, with the latest mock numbers, everything is insured, the times are collected, and everything looks good for coordination. So we would get on the phone and we would do that Craft San Juan Center estimate. So they would pick up the phone and they'd be Craft, and we would go on. We would start that conversation immediately. They don't have a lot of time. New York minute, everything's faster there. So we ramble off. Test 567 at Kinch. Kinch time level 2024, flight level 300, Mach 0.78, right? Circling the altitude last upon hearing approved, and they would say approved. And that's exciting. We would leave it offset for the R side because the R side is going to say, oh, hey, that aircraft is going to get 30, not 32. So something to pay attention for. Test 002 at Ferna time and level 2029er, flight level 320, Mach 0.79er, flight level 320 is approved, right? They're going to be real fast with it. And then test 90 and 90, Kinch time and level 2031, flight level 340, Mach 0.81. 2031, flight level 340 is approved, test 9090. And last, test 44, 55, 3 T's, not 2. Kinch time and level 2032, flight level 380, Mach 0.81. 2032, flight level 380 is approved. Perfect. You see how this bay is, even though it has its inherent complexities, right? There are some complexities innate with this, especially the way things change because of the nature of the airspace, right? The airways are very long. They transcend the entire length or width of San Juan Center's airspace, and sometimes nothing like a departure to kind of screw you up and be like, have this wonderful grandiose plan. Everybody's pre-planned an altitude. Maybe you're going to use some Mach number technique with 10 minutes, and all you need is the departure to screw you up. Like, where am I going to put this guy? So just remember that everything is very fragile, but you have to just do your best with what you have at the time, and just know that it has to change, or it might have to change, but that's dynamic and that's air traffic control. And I'm sure we can talk about to exhaustion some of the alternate things that you can do to make a good traffic situation, to accommodate aircraft at their requested altitude, to make sure nobody's being robbed of performance. So just some things to consider. And maybe we can mention those in the next slide. But for right now, let's enjoy the fact that we have a plan here. We have a plan with test 009 at 34, and they're not in the sector yet, so we're not talking to the aircraft. So we have some things in mind, but hey, we'll cross that bridge when we get the estimate, the Mach number, so on and so forth. But right now, everything's looking good. We're almost done here, so we're doing a fantastic job. So I hope you feel good. I hope you're understanding the way you have to divvy up altitudes. You are in control. If you read the San Juan Center SOP for Sector 4, or for any D side for that matter, you're in charge, because it's very interesting. You as the D side set the restrictions, and guess who has to respect that? The R side. The R side complies with any traffic restrictions issued and published by D4 or whatever D side. So the idea that you are in control, and you are in control of the boundary. You have the grandiose picture of what's going outside and what's coming inside of our facility, inside of our borders. So you're the protector. So take pride in that. And I'll see you at the next slide, and hopefully we have a lot more things flattened. I'll see you there. You try to name a better feeling than it is when you flatten a strip and know that everything is well, all is perfect, and the world is just some miraculous happy place. At least your world of D4 or Sector 4 is wonderful, and it is, because you should take pride in knowing that you did a good job and all that wonderful fluff. So we see here that test 567 still is not at flight level 300, still leaving it offset for the R side. That's the R side's memory jogger, not yours. You are well and set and wonderfully on your way. And sure enough, we get a departure. And how wonderful is this? A departure late in the game after we have a lot of things established here to make sure it doesn't screw things too much in particular. And it does not, because look at the requested altitude. And knowing that the radar controller will be able to make this happen via, well, we'll talk about in just a second. So let's take a look at this. Test 77, 88, heavy aircraft in particular, wanting 43. So if we do a traffic search, we know that our test 001 will be gone by the time that aircraft is, well, not even a factor there. It's 15 minutes in trail. This aircraft, 202436, 12 minutes in trail, still requesting higher under the theory that everybody is level leaving our airspace. No factor there. No factor with this inbound, obviously. 32, yet again requesting higher. Yet again, an aircraft that's going to be at Pling by the time this aircraft is at Furna, so they won't even see each other, as we described how standard routing, the preferential routing into San Juan, is way laterally separated on radar with the Glida 3 departure, which is absolutely beautiful. You'll learn to love the Glida 3 departure whenever you become a radar controller or train. Just leave them on it. It's a wonderful thing to watch them fly it. Test 9090 at 34, and now we're starting to get a little closer into the time range here, 31, 36, yet again an aircraft requesting well above that particular aircraft's altitude, 38, 32, and then we have some updated information on test 009, and it looks like they're requesting 36, more on that in just a second, yet again 43 requesting higher, no big deal here, and no factor with our inbound. Now, one of the interesting things that you would want to perhaps tell your R side. This is where the radar associate duties come in. Knowing that this particular aircraft wants a very high altitude, relatively when you compare it to our customers here in this bay in the mid to low 30s, you're going to have to let them know that, hey, these aircraft, as they converge at a common point, Furna, the Kinch area, that it might get kind of tricky to try to climb some of these aircraft on top of each other. Some of these might be a sandwich situation. But with the nature of the Glida 3 departure that we've kind of talked about, the way it laterally separates itself from those airways, also to the size of Sector 4, nothing a vector can solve. Sector 4 is huge. It's our largest sector. It has the most airspace in it, so you're able to put a friendly vector out there and have an aircraft climb without anybody getting in their way. Nobody wants to be in the same area as that aircraft. It's wonderful. You have that advantage here in San Juan in particular, where you have large en route sectors to do some vectoring, put aircraft where they are not, as one of my mentors would always say. But it is a good idea to let them know, saying, hey, this aircraft, its climb, it might slowly converge with some of these, moderately high overflights and already establishing the flight levels, because this aircraft is starting out at 10,000 feet, making that climb to 43, full of fuel going to LaGuardia. So it's something to consider, and it makes you a good radar associate, knowing that you see the picture of what is going on. So there you go. So with peace of mind, knowing that we will get the Mach number and everything that we need, we know that this aircraft is perfect for coordination at the requested altitude. Yet again, you see how this bay is a lot more straightforward than the Thank Bay, but still has some complexity here with the way the picture changes. And look at us. We have updated information now on test 009er. And they're 2033 requesting 36 and Mach 0.78. And this is wonderful, and you should breathe a sigh of relief, because if we look at the traffic situation with them wanting 36, we have test 001 as the only aircraft requesting 36 at the moment, the 2021. Now, if this aircraft wanted to stay at 34, we had traffic for that aircraft. Well, they would not have gotten it at all, because it really would have threw a wrench in our gear, because we had this perfect plan set, and I talked about this. We talked about this, how you can have a perfect plan set, already coordinated even, right? You have a good idea, that wonderful mental picture of what you have leaving the airspace. Maybe you're ready to brief somebody who's going to get you out, and sure enough, something like this screws it up. But knowing that this aircraft is going Mach 0.81 at 34, and this aircraft is going Mach 0.78 at requesting 34 as well, but there's no way you can possibly, even with all the vectoring and speed control, to try to get find 10 minutes here. And you shouldn't want to. It robs the aircraft of valuable time and performance. So it's good that they requested 36. Basically, we got lucky. And sometimes these presentations doesn't have to all be complexity and wonderfully difficult things. That we can get away with having something good happen on our side. So with that being said, the only thing that we are waiting for is for a Mach number solicitation for test 7788, and we are ready to coordinate, right? Ready to coordinate these two aircraft transitioning out of San Juan Center's airspace with perfect peace of mind. And yet again, you see how that 36 really saved us, because the only other 36 there is at 2021, and they will leave Ferna at 2033. So you are golden and co-mocked. It's absolutely wonderful. So let's get at it. I'll see you at the next slide, and we're going to finish up these offset of strips. Wonderful job with that. Great job engaging the dialogue here. So we still have test 567, still not quite at 30, but they'll get there eventually. But here's our perfect opportunity for us, after the discussion of how wonderful things are, because you did such a fantastic job, to call Craft and get ready to coordinate. Craft San Juan Center estimates, Craft at Ferna, test 009er, Ferna time and level 2033, flight level 360, Mach 0.78. We pretend that's in the machine, and they would say flight level 360 is approved, test 009er. Next, test 7778 at Ferna, Ferna time level 2036, flight level 430, Mach 0.82. Level 430 is approved, and look at that. We can set those strips to the side, right? 36 is approved. Wherever that aircraft is at, maybe they're still in sector 2, they can climb them. You could let the next sector know, hey, the aircraft is good in sector 4 for 36, and just do your thing, do your radar associate duties, make sure everybody's in the know. Now, some of the things that we kind of brought up that I wasn't able to really address is the alternate instructions. So when aircraft all want to be over the same fix at the same time, right? It happens with the nature of our airspace. Aircraft are banked. They have arrival banks and departure banks, and they are going to arrive the hubs all at a single time, or at least in a time frame that's relatively small. So sometimes you can always use things that you may not think about right away as an untrained D side, or maybe not so seasoned, but just remember that there are resources available to you, knowing that a lot of these aircraft that we work that are on Lima 455, I would say about 86 to 88% of them all are going to the New York terminal area, or at least the East Coast with airports north of New York. So in New York and all points north, and by north, I probably mean Boston and the Bradley area, maybe Toronto in some cases. So what does that mean? Well, it means that you can always try and really think outside the box and offer other Lima airways to these aircraft. We know that these aircraft, a lot of these aircraft, as we just said, they are going to the New York terminal areas and all points north, and a lot of these Lima airways kind of terminate at the New York terminal area. So you are able to use resources. One airway can be as good as the other, and it might be enticing to an air crew who has the choice of being stopped at flight level 280 when they wanted 360, but 36 is not available. So that will happen, and sometimes you're able to make that happen, and that feels really good, and you should be proud of that, because you thought outside the box, offered a slightly different course of action, an alternate choice, and they are able to get it with no detriment to aircraft performance, or prolong the flight for any superfluous amount of time, and you were able to accommodate them at the requested altitude, so the aircraft performs the right way, the company's happy, the pilot's happy, everybody's safe, and everybody's happy. So it's wonderful. But just remember that there are resources available to you, the charts in the sector, the charts above the sector, knowing how to replace one Lima airway with another. And some of that might mean transferring some of those aircraft to go through Miami Center's airspace on Lima 451, 52, 53, or 54, or moving them a little further east, putting on Lima 456, Lima 458, and in some cases really far out to the east, depending on where they're at, Lima 459. So it could work in your favor, and it might be very advantageous to all parties involved. So with that being said, let's go to the next slide, and let's flatten some of these strips and take a look at what we have left. Probably not much, but you did a fantastic job, so let's keep going. Look at this good looking bay. A flat bay is a happy bay, and great job with that, with everything that we discussed, everything that you put your industrious mind to, take into consideration some of the more poignant things we talked about, and this is your result. A great representation, a kind of graphical, artistic representation of things in black, red, check marks, and little characters on how you completed the task at hand. And you did a fantastic job with it. And this is what it should look like when you sit back and you're able to relax. The printer stops chiming, and it kind of gives you a moment to just take a look and continue to monitor and see, hey, this is a safe operation running here. I am on top of things. I am on top of the sector. I am running the sector. It is not running me. And that is something that you will achieve and that you will continue to aim to achieve. It will always be your primary objective to get on top of the sector, especially when you sit down like we did and there was absolutely nothing done, nothing coordinated going outbound or nothing coordinated inbound. And there will be a lot more flight plans than just this couple that we had, for example. And you'll also have an entire thank bay too, and possibly Yayunedu bay as well. So just remember, it's going to be a lot. But you're up to the challenge. If you take it bay by bay and do the fundamental aspect, do the traffic search, see if the aircraft is good for climb, make sure the route of flight is correct, is the strip ready for coordination. If you do these fundamental aspects, you will be able to have that carry you through the busiest of sessions. And it will be wonderful, and you'll be happy that you methodically, technically did it the right way and had that guide you through both flow sessions. Like this one was kind of moderate, I guess, because we would have other bays, but the slow sessions all the way up to the busy ones. So great job with that today. I hope you got something out of it. So I'll see you at the next slide for the goodbye, but hey, really good job. It's like you're at the Olympics, right? On the pool, you do the fancy little thing and you land and you stick the landing, like Mary Lou Retton. So you stuck the landing, and look at that silver bird landing Juliana. So it's absolutely wonderful. Shirt kind of matches the pretty zoo of the wonderful Atlantic Ocean and the Caribbean Sea. So great job today, by the way. It was absolutely wonderful. We have kind of completed Sector 4. We were waiting for this LENT video for a long time because we did a whole bunch of stuff in the Yayunedu Bay because those bays are really challenging. But this one, you made it look like a cakewalk. And just remember that it is straightforward until it isn't. And there are some aspects that difficulties will arise, and you'll just have to remember that, hey, remember that the whole point of the GLADA 3 departure is to blend aircraft into the en route environment, blend them in to get them on Lima 455, knowing that your plan can change, or knowing that a San Juan departure or a near border departure can really screw up all the plans you had for your overflights that are still south of the island of Puerto Rico. So just remember some of that, and you will be able to be flexible and be responsive to change. And that's all air traffic control is, right? Air traffic control is you being able to accept dynamic situations, be adapting to change, and knowing that you're going to make mistakes. And everybody makes mistakes. And that's not the nature of a good air traffic controller, is one who's perfect. No, everybody makes mistakes. And even the most seasoned controller makes mistakes. But what separates a seasoned controller from a controller who is not quite as seasoned or senior as a junior controller is the idea that the senior controller can make reconciliation, can fix it a lot faster. It's not about making mistakes. What it is can you fix that mistake in a quick amount of time and without anything being done that will be detrimental to safety, efficiency, and all the other things that we aim to achieve and ensure in this wonderful world of air traffic control. So just remember that you're going to make mistakes, but if you can recover from them fast enough in the manner at which you are held to at such a standard, if you're able to uphold that standard and recover and remain within that kind of performance narrative, well, then you're fine. So great job today. Hope you learned something. I always appreciate you guys spending time with me here at work. Great way to kill a break. I'm happy you guys came and join me for this LENT Bay exploration. So Steve here, wishing you nothing but the best, and may your attitude be just like your separation. Positive. I will see you at the next video. Bye now.